Hey everyone, Sarah Brown-Wessling here from the Council of Chief State School Officers National Teacher of the Year program. And I'm excited to introduce Voices from the Classroom, the State Teacher of the Year podcast. CCSSO's National Teacher of the Year program provides a platform for exceptional educators to elevate issues that affect teachers and their students, to expand their leadership roles, and to inform policy and practice. I was named National Teacher of the Year in 2010, and since then, I've been committed to sharing the stories and elevating the voices of State Teachers of the Year. It is my hope that this podcast will give you insight into the incredible work they do. As we are very much aware, the 2020-2021 school year is so different from anything we could have imagined. Not only do the physical classroom environments look different for students, they feel different as educators navigate responding to two radical changes in our society: the COVID-19 pandemic and the heightened awareness of institutionalized racism. Through this first series, My First Lesson of the Year, we hope to capture the true essence of the return to school from an educator's perspective. In these episodes, the 2020 State Teachers of the Year will walk us through the ways they are approaching instruction and maintaining a connection with their students in this new environment. You can join the conversation on social media too, by using the hashtag NTOY20 or by visiting us online at ntoy.org. That's NTOY.org. Let's begin. Hello, this is Sarah Brown-Wessling. Welcome, Lynette Stant. We are so excited to have you here as part of this conversation today.
I am so glad to be here.
Wonderful. Can you introduce yourself for us?
Absolutely. I'm going to introduce myself in my native language first and then in English. Ja, Lynette Stant Yinshia, Senta Kinensha, but ni Bashichin, Sitna Jini Dashache, Podachini Dashanala, Akut Ego Astana Inshla. So I introduced myself in Navajo to make a connection to other Dene people who are in the audience, who possibly might be in the audience. And that's how we connect as family. And so that's really important in my culture. But in English, I am Lynette Stant, and I teach third grade on the Salt River Indian Reservation and have been teaching in Salt River for the past 15 years. I am currently Arizona's 2020 Teacher of the Year.
Wonderful. So can you tell us about one of the first lessons that you taught this year?
Absolutely. I started off my year by teaching a social emotional lesson, which is so different than how I've previously taught or started off this school year before. And so the social emotional lesson was really about connecting with students and gauging where they were in the midst of this pandemic, because I had not seen students since March. And so to have a conversation about where they were in the midst of a pandemic was really important. And it was a school-wide initiative.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Can you tell us how, I think we kind of can hear, but how is this lesson different than maybe how you would usually start the year?
Oh, it was so different. One, it was virtual, so we didn't get to see students face to face, but in the past, the school year starts off with so much excitement, kids coming into your room, and, we're just so happy to see each other after a long summer and getting to know you kind of activities. So starting with a social emotional lesson was really different because it was a little somber, because you began to hear some of the struggles that students were facing since last March. Some of them had lost family members. Some of their family members were diagnosed with COVID. And then hearing about how their whole community had changed, but also how scared they were about coming back to school. And some, even to this day, are really fearful about coming back to school. So that was definitely different. It was a different vibe for sure.
For sure. So I know there are so many teachers who are listening, and I just know they're wondering how you created the kind of space virtually and at the beginning of the year and with young learners that would allow them to be so vulnerable and open with you, right at the beginning.
I think part of it is my personality. I have a very soft voice. And so just my demeanor with students probably help facilitate that space, but also sharing my vulnerabilities about how I was feeling and what I've experienced since March, and allowing parents to be part of the conversation. I had parents who were sitting with students, having the conversation with them. And so, having a child's parent right next to them, they were a little bit more willing, feeling a little bit more safe, and which is also different. Typically we don't have parents, coming the whole day of the first day of school, but this was a little different. So just really creating that calming place and letting them know that, validating their feelings and letting them know that it's not an isolated feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. Were there specific questions you asked, or did you just kind of open up the conversation? And because you did have, the whole family there, which I think is wonderful as well. It's a different way for us to think about not just having parents working in the same spaces that their kids are learning, but actually inviting everyone to be part of it together.
I think by the time I got to see kids in early August, like I said, I hadn't seen them since March. They were so ready to talk to a teacher. So it really just started with, so how are you doing? I've missed you since March. I haven't seen any kids, and it's so exciting to see you. And then, it just literally opened the floodgates to they're third graders, so they're willing to share and talk.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Is there anything that you learned about either your students? Well, clearly you learned about how they were doing. Is there anything you learned about creating that community, or the importance of community, or even just what it means to teach in a pandemic?
Oh my gosh. I think the biggest lesson I've learned is how important it is to connect with families, if not weekly, but daily. Some need daily check-ins, but also being willing to be flexible with this learning platform, because not all families are ready. I think there's an assumption that everybody knows how to use an online platform, how to, manipulate through, say, something like Class Dojo, how to open online document and write on a document. And so there's that assumption. So I've really learned some patience. And, sometimes there's days when it's the same family reaching out for help. And even though you've showed them over and over, they still need that support every single day. And so what I've learned is that how important it is to connect with families. And I'm definitely going to carry this on past the pandemic. Right. I've always connected with families, but not so, I guess, intimately, that we're hearing what they really need. And I teach ELA reading, and collectively I have 36 students, but I have a homeroom students of 12. And so with my 12 students, really looking, almost every single one of them have an individual learning format. Sure. Yeah.
And really being able to pay attention to that.
Yeah. I was going to say, if there is anything that's positive about teaching through a pandemic, is really being able to individualize work and meet the family's needs. I mean, it definitely takes a lot of time and effort, but it's so valuable because they definitely need it.
Yeah. And I love that you're seeing that, seeing the positive. It's so easy to focus on the things that are challenging and difficult and frustrating. And I love the way that you are surfacing the parts of this that we can learn from and hang on to. Yes. And I think it's so important to take your lesson about thinking about whole families, right? Not just students and parents separately, but thinking about whole families and how we are all in this community together. We are all part of this together. So.
Absolutely. And at third grade, they still need parental support when it comes to working on in a digital platform.
Yeah.
You know, they're not as independent as, say, a sixth grader or a high school student. So they still need support. So you definitely have to include the family in that discussion.
Yep. This is just wonderful. Thank you so much for your time and your insights. I know these are going to be so valuable for so many teachers.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the first series of Voices from the Classroom, the State Teacher of the Year podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Council of Chief State School Officers National Teacher of the Year program. It's our honor to elevate the voices of educators across the country and provide them with a national platform to amplify their message and advocate on behalf of their students and colleagues. Please share these lessons on social media with the hashtag NTOY20. That's hashtag NTOY20. Let's keep the conversation going.